Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to the Spirit Tarot YouTube channel. If you are new, welcome back. If you're a returning viewer, I'm Rin, and today I'm showing you a couple of spreads for the Gypsy Witch Fortune Telling Playing Cards deck. Yes, I know that is a mouthful, but I still love this deck. This is a very old deck. We'll get into that in a second. I actually first came across this deck completely by chance, if you will. We'll call her my grandmother-in-law gave me her copy of this deck, and she actually, because she, obviously is quite a bit older than me, she actually had a vintage copy of this deck. The deck that I am using in this video is my new, because this deck is still in print. This is a new copy that I bought, I want to say last year, because I'm doing a lot more client readings with this deck now, and I don't want anything to happen to that vintage deck that she gave me because it means a lot to me. So I bought a current copy in order to use that for my client readings. So I'm just going to do a real quick history of this deck because it'll make the deck make a little more sense to you once you know that. And I know I am aware that with the last purchasing of the rights of this deck, there is some misinformation out there as to the origins of this deck. So this is the actual documented history, the origins of this deck. So this deck was originally published as the Mademoiselle Lenormand's Gypsy Witches Fortune Telling Cards in 1894 by Frederick J. Drake and Company. It started out as an expansion on the Lenormand style of readings, and this first iteration of the deck was based off of Danner G. Malhausen's, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, 1875 deck published in Berlin, which was a 48 card expansion of what we usually see of the 36 cards in the Lenormand deck. I guess I shouldn't say what we usually see. A Lenormand deck is 36 cards. There are a couple out there like the Gilded Lenormand that has some extra cards that the creator has thrown in, but a Lenormand deck is 36 cards. After that, the deck would be further expanded after the 1894 version to include all 52 cards of a standard deck of playing cards, and the Joker would also be added in as well. Symbols and meanings would be changed up a little bit between those on the cards of Milhausen's deck and the Gypsy Witch Fortune Telling cards we see today. And the deck that we see today was first published in 1903 by Home Game Company. Now, I apologize, you are going to be able to see my mic during this video because this first spread that I'm going to show you, it actually takes up quite a bit of the table, and to get the camera angle and everything, I just kind of have to have the mic in the frame. I apologize for that. But this deck, as you can see, 1903, when it was first published as it is, the deck has remained the same. It has been published continuously since then, and it has remained the same throughout all of those printings and time periods and changes of ownership for the rights to the deck. One of the things we need to keep in mind is this was first put out in 1903. 1903 was a different time period, and when we're working with historical cartomancy systems, we have to keep the time period in mind. Because of attitudes and beliefs in 1903, there are people that very much frown on this deck today or take issue with this deck today for a couple of different reasons. I feel one is a matter of personal taste, and the other is there's a workaround for it. So let's address the one first that has the workaround. 1903, Victorian era, we have the assumption of binary genders. You do need a significator card for the readings that were intended to be done with this deck. The little white book is all that comes with it. It does not give you card meanings, but it does give you two spreads, the short reading and the long reading. It's not very helpful, and that's why a lot of people do ask for tutorials on how to read with this deck. But for the long reading and the short reading both, you need a significator card. And so your querent would need to choose. Now, back in 1903, it really wouldn't have been an issue. They would have either chosen a lady or a man. Today, we know gender is fluid. Not everyone identifies as he or she. So some people don't like decks like this or systems like this because of the significator cards. For me, it's a non-issue. Whatever the client identifies as, if they use masculine pronouns, then I use the gentleman. If they use feminine pronouns, I would use the lady. If they are non-binary or they just don't like male or female pronouns, what have you, if they don't feel one of those cards represents them, then what I personally do is I just use the Joker to represent them. This is my workaround. I do this in a lot of cartomancy systems where a significator card is required and the initial system only had binary genders. If I have a client that does not feel that these significator cards resonates with them, then I will just merely dictate that the Joker card represents them, because it doesn't affect the readings in any way. It's an extra card that I can just put down there, gender neutral, and we can roll with that. So that complaint that some people have, well, I understand why they have that critique of the deck. We do need to keep in mind that it is a historical cartomancy system, and that was the norm at the time, and that there is a workaround, and I'm sure other workarounds could be created as well in order to make the deck more suitable for contemporary use. The other thing that puts some people off to this deck is that this deck does have what are considered negative cards. Now in tarot, a lot of us, myself included, say there is no such thing really as a negative card. Even if something challenging comes up, it's an opportunity for growth, etc. Just because the Tower does indicate a sudden and extreme change, we can view that in a positive light. So we still see challenging energies in the tarot, but we don't, like, the death card doesn't mean somebody's going to drop dead. However, this is from 1903. The ideas around divination and the attitudes and the beliefs around divination and what was and wasn't acceptable, what was and wasn't okay, what was desired in a reading, they had some different goals then. Yeah, we all want to know the future, right? And, people in 1903 using this deck wanted to know the future. People who use this today want a glimpse at their future. But there's some different ideas and thoughts and baggage around that. This deck very much has negative cards. It has a card that says someone's going to die. And there's no two ways really about it. There's not that deep esoteric well that you can dive into with tarot with this deck. And as a matter of fact, it cracks me up because tarot is a very specific system. It is a 78 card system with 22 cards in the major arcana and 56 cards in the minor arcana, 4 suits, 4 court cards per suit. It's a very defined system. However, if you go on Amazon and read the reviews for this, you will find several negative reviews that say this is not a good tarot deck for beginners. I'm not quite sure what to say to that isn't rude. Like, I have to think. Because, of course, it's not a good tarot deck for beginners. It's not a tarot deck at all. It's based off the Lenormand system, which is a completely different system from tarot. And it's an expansion, sort of an extension, a build-off, a spin-off of Lenormand, which, if you have looked into the history of Lenormand, actually started out with playing cards. When people were first reading Lenormand style, there weren't specific Lenormand cards. You just used a regular deck of playing cards to read Lenormand. But I digress. The point being here, this is based off of a playing card system. It is not tarot in any stretch of the imagination. It was never meant to be tarot. This was a playing card system meant for the Victorian era. I am sure that if the original creators of this deck knew that it is still in print today, they would probably be elated, but also probably flabbergasted. I don't think that anyone would figure that this deck has lasted as long as it has and has the life that it does. So do be aware, this deck does absolutely have negative cards. There's no two ways around it. And so you need to, especially if you're going to read for somebody else, you need to be prepared for how you're going to deal with those negative cards when they come up in a reading. Because while we understand that like, oh, somebody's going to drop dead, and that's just how you delivered it back in 1903. Like, there was no sugarcoating, there was no really any consideration for the querent's feelings. If the card said somebody's dropping dead, well, then you just told them that somebody was going to drop dead. I choose not to deliver the news that way. There are certain cards in this deck that, from years of working with it, I put a little flavor to them to make them more palatable for contemporary querents and contemporary thoughts, ideals, values when it comes to divination. So I do put sort of my own spin, if you will, on some of the cards. I don't interpret them. This was meant to be interpreted very literally. There's several of the cards in here that I do not interpret super literally. You'll recognize, if you've seen the Maybe Lenormand, then you'll recognize the extra symbols in this deck. And I do sometimes draw from my Lenormand experience to interpret these cards. I guess I should explain that each card, I don't know if it'll show up well, but you can see right here, each card says what the card means. And it also says, like, if it's near certain other cards, that it means this, or if it's away, or if it's close to the querent, or what have you. It gives you the meaning right on the card. These do not necessarily mesh with the Lenormand meanings, but sometimes I will use my Lenormand experience to sort of fold in to get a contemporary reading, because sometimes it can be beyond challenging. If you have followed me, you know I embrace shadow work. I do not run from challenging energies or cards that come up in readings, but this deck can be a little savage. It can be a little brutal. And so I try to deliver the messages with tact, and there are certain cards that I do not interpret literally, especially ones that involve death, because I do not ever predict death. I don't think that's something that readers should be predicting. That could be a whole video unto itself. I try not to put my values and ethics onto other readers, but I think there are just certain things that it's not a good idea to practice, and predicting anyone's death, I think that if you do that, you really need to do it with consideration and care and a whole lot of forethought, and that's just a big thing. So, like I said, there are some cards that I kind of put a modern spin on in order to interpret these. And while I do use this deck year round, it does tend to be pretty popular around this time of year. All right, so I'm going to set our significator cards aside. There are two ways you can do what I'm about to show you, and we're just going to grab one joker and set the others aside. The booklet, where did I put that? Here it is. The booklet that comes with this deck recommends that you put the joker into the deck and ask a yes/no question before you do the reading. Now, you're really supposed to put these two cards in, but I don't want to have to stop and dig those out again after we finish. So just for the sake of this educational video, I'm going to leave them out, but you really want them in when you do this. So you'll shuffle the joker into the deck while you ask your question. And I'm going to do this short reading as a reading for myself. Now, when I do these, I don't like to predict past 90 days in any of my readings if they do offer an element of prediction. So when I do the Gypsy Witch readings in my shop for clients, it is a 90-day ahead reading. So I'm recording this on October 3rd. So this is going to be my October, November, and December. And let's just ask, oh gosh, I should have thought of a yes no question before I started doing this, but I was focused on the information about the deck. Let's ask if I will get to see a certain friend of mine before the end of this year. Not going to name names in a video, but let's ask if I will get to see that friend before the end of this year. So you shuffle while you ask your question. And then you start turning up cards and you count them as they go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44. All right, 44. So we landed, the Joker was an even card. So that means yes. If the Joker is an odd numbered card, then that means no. And while this is a super simple method, this deck, like I said, I got it from my grandmother-in-law, and when I got this deck, I inquired about a certain someone that I knew as to whether or not he and I would be together, and this deck, using this particular method, actually predicted my marriage. That's just one of the many ways this deck has blown me away over the years, but this is actually how I predicted my marriage, is through this exact method. Now, once you're done doing the yes no question, you're going to take the Joker back out of the deck. You're going to put the deck back together. Now, you will pick your significator card. We're doing a reading for me, so I'm going to choose the lady, and we're going to set the gentleman aside. Actually, we're going to set the gentleman back in the deck. All right. I think that'll be a good place. The problem is this is going to take up the full frame, and I'm trying to hope that I have that. Let's just measure so that we know before we start, because this is going to be tight. Okay, so that's where we want our lady. Now, there are two ways you can do this. You could ask another specific question when you go to do the short spread. I do not read with this deck that way. If I'm asking a specific question, I do the yes no that I just showed you, and then the spread that I'm doing is an outlook for the next 90 days. You can do it either way, but when I do this, it is a general reading for the next 90 days. I don't ask a question. That is just my personal style, but you absolutely can ask a question if you would like. So you shuffle the cards. Whether you're asking a question or doing a general reading, it doesn't really matter for how we're proceeding, but I'm going to do this as the general reading that I typically do. All right, so here's how you lay out the cards. The first card goes there. Second card, third card, fourth card, fifth card, sixth card, seventh card, eighth card. So there's your inner circle. Then you're going to come around, and I usually overlap them kind of slightly like this, but there's your next card. Oh, I'll grab two. And the only one here, 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 and here. So this is the short spread. This is all of the cards that you will lay out. And you can see that we lay them in an inner circle, and then we have an outer circle, each starting in the upper left-hand corner. Let me adjust this camera a little bit if I can. Okay, there we go. That's a little more straight. So the significator is in the center. We really do not interpret the significator. But some cards, we will look at them in relation to their distance or position from the significator. Now, in the white booklet, there really are no instructions. It tells you to lay these out. It tells you that this inner circle is sort of the more immediate stuff, the larger energies, the bigger events, energies, things that will occur, the things that are going to matter the most, they're going to have the most relevance and significance, the biggest impact on the querent over the time frame we're looking at, which is 90 days. These are more minor influences that are things that are going on in the background. They're things that won't have quite as much impact, or aren't as likely to have quite as much impact on the querent as the cards in the inner circle. And we always have free will. Keep that in mind. We're doing a 90-day ahead spread. So we may look at this and go, oh crap, I need to alter my course. If we make course alterations during this time, it's the things in the outer circle that are more likely to change first. It'll require more change and more work to change the things in the inner circle. So if you want to create a change, or if you want to ensure something that's going to happen, it'll take less work to change or ensure things that happen in the inner circle, and it'll take more work to change or ensure the things will happen in the outer circle. So I like to start here in the upper left hand corner of the inner circle. I always go with the inner circle first and then do the outer circle. There really is no hard and fast, and sometimes I will skip around. I usually try to go, for client readings, I usually try to go pretty in order like this, but sometimes I will see something that I will skip around. Now I've got a student in here close. I'm sorry for the squeaking of my chair, but these are really hard for me to read, and I think I'm going to need to move that snake card because I'm trying to go by exactly what's on the card for you and read you some of these so that you get a feel for the kind of things that they say. So I want to make sure all the text is visible to me at the very least, because I know normally I like to try to get down in close to the cards for you all, but I cannot do that and show this spread. So I'm going to have to do a little story time and read to y'all. Hope you don't mind. So first we have the anchor, and the card reads, the anchor denotes successful ventures in business and love, and surrounded by 11, 13, 29, 30, 31, 15, breach of trust. Okay, so we can look here. Do we have 11, 13, 29? We have 13 up here, but it's in the outer circle. So this is less significant and it has less weight. We'll look at this card. But we've got 29, 30, 31, and 15. We don't have any of those other cards here. Near the dog, we're not near the dog, but if it were near the dog, it would mean fidelity of the one you love. So we're looking at potential breach of trust here. There could be two energies at play. We'll see what happens as we go on, because the anchor is usually success, but we do have that snake in the outer circle. So for me, if I'm interpreting this for a client, I'm going to say that chances are there's a great deal of success, but we're going to need to be careful and mindful that somebody may breach our trust during this time period, and that could have an impact on the things we're trying to accomplish. So if we're mindful of that, we can kind of get ourselves prepared, and we might be able to minimize or even avoid the impact of that snake card on this anchor card. Next, we have flames on the hearth. They indicate good fortune and neutralize the evil of near-lying unlucky cards and increases the value of lucky ones. So again, when I would be reading this for a client, and again, this is for myself, but somebody's going to do something that probably is going to breach some trust with me. However, it's not going to be a huge deal. Maybe somebody tells me a white lie to try to spare my feelings, or to maybe they're embarrassed about something, so they don't want to tell me the truth. We've got the lion here, which presages a sudden shock from bad news. Well, here's the thing. For me personally, And again, I usually interpret strictly on the inside circle first, but this card right here, they're significant to each other. So this person is probably going to, I'm going to find out about this breach of trust, basically. That's going to be the sudden shock of news. This person's going to do something behind my back. It may not necessarily be ill motivated. It could just kind of be to save face or something like that. That's what I'm feeling. But it's not really going to have an impact on what I'm doing. It's just going to be a little bit of a shock. And it's not going to be that huge of a deal because we have the hearth fire here. Then we have the Tower, and I know everybody takes a breath because we're so used to the Tower being seen as a negative card in tarot, but we have the Tower surrounded by clouds, denotes sickness, and if adjoining, death. So here's what I'm talking about with negative cards, right? This means I'm going to drop dead in a literal sense. It can be interpreted that way. Now, if the clouds are there, that's definitely what it's saying. But we have the mountains here, not the clouds. There's clouds, though, in this card. And so that, to me, because it's referring to the clouds and there's clouds there, this card from a literal translation would be a chance of death. I don't take it that way. This means to me that at some point during the next 90 days, I'm going to have some issues with my health, which is not a big surprise for me. I haven't been feeling great lately, and I do have health issues. Then we have wine is the symbol of cheerfulness and gaiety. Pretty self-explanatory. Means there's going to be, this is my party card, my good times card. There's going to be something we're celebrating. There's going to be something to be happy about, something to celebrate, something that's going to bring joy. And it could, because we asked that yes/no question before the reading, I asked if I would see that friend by the end of this year, which would fall into this 90-day window. That could possibly be what this is about. The moon, when near, which it is near, the significator, because we're right there, is a good omen it predicts fortune. When distant, oh my gosh, I can't talk. When distant, in exposure of your secrets. So it's near. So it's not about exposing any of my secrets. Instead, it is about being a good omen. Again, we have that little bit of the snake with the anchor. Could be a little bit of a thorn in the side, but look at all these positive cards other than I might have a little bit of sickness. I might get, laid up for a little bit during this time period. We don't know how long, and we don't know when these things will unfold during the 90-day period. I have seen some people that when they read like this is what will happen in the first half of the 90 days, and this is what will happen in the second half of the 90 days. I don't read like that because these are supposed to be the big energies and influences and impacts. These are supposed to be the minor ones, so I don't read it that way, but it is an option if you want to read it that way. Then we have the shepherd indicates an intense love of life and strong fellow feeling. So we've got the wine here. We've got a good omen. We've got this news. Maybe this news could even be, maybe it'll be a surprise. It's the shock of sudden bad news. Maybe we'll think that we can't get together, and then this is going to turn around and we will actually be able to see each other. Again, you don't have to weave this reading in with the yes/no reading, but it is a possibility of things that could come. But definitely, kinship with someone, being close to someone, loving life, being very happy about things. We've got the wine here, we've got the good omen, and then we've got the clover, which is always a symbol of luck. But the clover leaf is a bearer of good tidings, but if near clouds, which it is not, it denotes great chagrin. If, however, number 2 does not lie near 29 or 28, the chagrin will be of short duration and happiness will follow. So we don't even have, let me double check. We do have number 2, but it does not lie near 29 or 28. So we've got luck coming. Now, the moon I consider as a bigger good omen. The clover I consider as small luck. You see that in the Lenormand where there's big luck and small luck depending on the card. I see the clover as small luck. So, finding a $5 bill on the ground, or getting every green light on the way to wherever you're going, a certain day. Little small luck things like that. So overall, these major influences, we've got some shocking bad news. It's going to involve somebody being deceptive, a breach of trust. But with the anchor here, and especially with the hearth fire, it's going to be something that is definitely surmountable. It would just be like, wow, like you really felt the need to try to hide that, be deceptive. Like, it's really a non-issue. We can just work it out. It's fine. The most concerning thing for me is the Tower card, because, as I said, I do personally have health issues, and so that is a concern because it's a pretty prevalent card. It's close to the significator, so I'm going to need to watch my health. Now, for clients, I don't read on health because I am not a medical professional. So when this comes up for clients, I interpret it more metaphorical. Something won't go the way they want. Some goal they have, something they're working on, is basically going to be sick, and it's going to need some extra care. You might need to take a rest from it, etc. If it's with the clouds and it's supposed to mean death, then I take that to mean that something is going to end. I don't take them as literal when I'm reading for a client. So that brings us then to the outer circle, which these are sort of the background energies and influences. These are things that if they're good things, you can certainly tap into them. If they're negative things, you can certainly try to work to prevent them. So first we have the stork. The stork denotes change of residence for the better, sooner or later, according to the distance which it lies from the person. Now, I am trying to change residence, so this is very significant for me. Because it's in the outer circle, that tells me that a change of residence very well could be coming for me, but it's going to be towards the end of the 90 days, or it's going to be something that I'm really going to have to work hard to manifest. So because I am looking to change residence and this card is here, my advice to a querent would be, if that's something you want, you need to be working extra hard on that, because the fact that it's in the outer circle means that it's either not going to manifest till later in the 90 days. And even if it's just set to do that, if that's just the divine timing of it, it's still a really good idea to be working hard towards that so that you make sure that it does manifest by the end of the 90 days, or is working on manifesting by the end of the 90 days. So that's a very significant card for me. I feel like we've really covered the snake when we covered the anchor and the hearth fire. I really don't feel like there's anything more to say there. Because of where it is, it's a minor breach of trust. Honestly, it's probably something that the person shouldn't even try to hide or disguise or mask. Then we have number 15. The letter is a sign of good tidings when near, and when touching indicates an unexpected good fortune. All right, so it's just news of good tidings. This isn't going to be a huge deal. It's just going to be something that I hear about and I'm going to be like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's in my favor. It's a positive, but it's not a huge deal because it's not in this circle. It's not touching my card. And then we have number 32, the mountains. Nearby indicates the presence of a mighty enemy. So if it was in this inner circle, this would be somebody I really need to be worried about. But it's out here, which tells me that somebody may try to ruffle my feathers during this 90-day period, or it could even mean that this person, this breach of trust, is going to ruffle my feathers, but it's not a big deal in the long run. It's basically, if I choose to, I can make a mountain out of a molehill, or I can see it as a molehill and let it go, work through it, process it, work with the person that it involves, and then just tap into these positive energies here. It doesn't have to be a huge thing because it's in the outside circle. Then we have number 34. The star ensures success in all matters, all enterprises, when near, when very distant, some unlucky events. So here's the thing. There is a larger spread. And there's no middle ground interpretation on this card. It's not in the inner circle. So it's not like we're going to get some sort of really great thing, but we're not going to get that unlucky events really either. There might be some hiccups in things, but it's stuff that's overcomable. That's not even a word. Surmountable. There we go. And stuff that's surmountable, and we can easily work through it, pass through it, and again, tap into the positive energies that we have in the inner circle. So yeah, there might be some hiccups. Spirit's just letting us know, hey, it might not be the absolute smoothest of sailing, but you're going to be okay. And then down here we have the fox in close proximity augurs, and you can tell that this was written in 1903. Who uses the wording augurs anymore? Augurs distrust of acquaintances who are seeking to betray you, distant, less danger. And so it's very interesting that we have the snake and the fox right across from each other like that. Basically, again, this breach of trust, we're going to see it as a little bit of a betrayal, right? It's going to sting. It's going to bother us a little bit. But because these are in the outer circle, we can work through it. We can get past it. It doesn't have to be anything monumental or anything that ends the friendship if this is a friend, or if it's like a business partner or a partnership of some kind. It doesn't have to be anything that ends that. Yes, it may upset us. It may take us aback a little bit. It might catch us a little off guard, but it's something that we can work through. And these are cards from the Spirit letting you know that it can be worked through. And probably this is a relationship that you want to work through it. You don't want to just throw it away. So Spirit is giving us these cards in this reading, in this case, since it's for me, to let me know that when I am taken aback, that when I find out about this breach of trust, that I need to take a deep breath and figure out how to work to heal that relationship when this happens over the course of the 90 days. Next, we have the order. It denotes honor and recognition of labor. Near 48, a sure sign of business success. We're not near 48, but that's still, it's a great card. Recognition of labor, honor. This means I'm likely to, receive some sort of acknowledgement for work done. That could just be helping a friend out, or it could be professional. And then the last card we have here is the bouquet of flowers, an absolute indication of long and happy life. If children are near, by extraordinary honors and fame. Well, children are not nearby, but you know what? I will take absolute indication of long and happy life. So this is also sort of Spirit letting us know that these health issues that are going to come up for me over the next 90 days, they're not life-threatening. They are just, it's just going to be things that are going to make it difficult for me to achieve the goals and do as much as I want to do. I need to be mindful of my health, but this, I'll be okay. I will get through it. Everything will be fine. Now, that was kind of a trick to do because I normally don't go through all the possible meanings of the cards as I do this, but I wanted you guys to hear exactly what were on these cards to sort of give you a flavor of what the cards are like in this deck and to try to kind of show you how I interpret them. When I do this reading for clients, it is a 15-minute audio reading. Because it is so hard for me to set up the camera, I take a photo of the spread because that's just easier. But it's about a 15-minute reading when I do this for clients. But that is how you do the short reading according to the little white book. That's how I do it. Like I said, some people do a little bit differently because there really isn't an outline in the little white booklet of how exactly you do this and interpret these cards. You're going to have to learn by doing. You've got to break the cards out. I try to teach this to kind of give you an idea of where to start. And then as you work with these cards in this deck and this spread, you will find your own flow and way of doing things. So you do not have to read this the exact same way that I do. Like I said, I do know that there are people that they read this as the first, say, 45 days if they're doing 90 days, and then this is the second 45 days, or whatever time frame they're looking at. This is the first half, this is the second half. It doesn't break it down that way in the little white book, and I personally don't like to read it that way. I do these as the big influences, and then these are what's in the background. Again, the background stuff, easier to cope with and change. The fact that the good cards, I mean, the shock of the news is going to be jarring to me. However, the actual situation itself, because these cards, the fox and the snake, are in the background, if you will, in the outer circle, to me that means that while it might be shocking, it might hit and kind of knock me off my balance for a moment. It's all stuff that can be worked through. And honestly, if I get an inkling of who this person is and what this situation is about over the 90 days, I might even be able to prevent it, depending on what my intuition tells me and what signs come up. So it's something that can be dealt with at the very least, can be worked through, can be healed from, or I might even be able to lessen the impact or prevent it altogether if I am mindful of the fact that this is something in play over the next 90 days. So I hope that makes sense. If you have questions, do leave them in the box down below, because I am happy to answer them either through a comment, or if something really big comes up, I might do a follow-up video if needed. So that is the short reading. I hope that you have enjoyed that. I am going to change my camera setup because the next spread that I'm going to show you is not one that comes from the little white book. It is actually a Lenormand spread that I use, that I have found that I like to do sometimes with the Gypsy Witch deck. So I'm going to change my setup and be back in a minute with this other spread, which actually is a short spread. It is just a 5-card spread. So if you're not ready to take on this and tackle this, I'm going to show you a 5-card spread. All right, I am back, and you'll be able to see the cards in a little more detail in this example because we are only using 5 cards, and we're back to a more normal camera angle and setup for my channel. Now, this spread, as I mentioned, is not something that traditionally this deck was used for. This is a 5-card Lenormand spread that I use, and I think that a lot of times it works great with this deck as well. Now, you can do this 2 ways. You can ask a specific question, or how I like to use this a lot of the times is just sort of my outlook for the day. There's a couple different ways you can do that. It's up to you, but I'm going to show you what I like to do. So you're going to go ahead, and I'm just going to do, and still pretty early in the morning, I'm just going to ask what's in store for my day. I'm almost afraid to ask because there could be some drama today. Oh, my youngest child, I'm telling you. But hopefully we'll have a smooth day. So let's see what's in store for the rest of my day. But like I said, you could also ask any specific question that would be appropriate to ask of this style of cartomancy. All right, so let's shuffle up the deck. All right, this feels good. And so I like to lay them from left to right. But I'm probably going to move these around after I get them laid down so that they're in the frame well. I highly doubt. Oh, wait. There we go. I did a pretty good job of laying those pretty well center. Don't usually get it that good. All right. So even though we lay from left to right, I start with the center card. This is very interesting, let me say, but it's looking good. So we have that clover here in the center. The clover is small luck, little luck, but it is lucky. So I am going to take that as a very, very good sign. This is the root of the matter. This is the central issue, central card for the reading. So I look at this first, and this to me looks very, very promising. Looks like I don't have a whole lot to be worried about. Like, luck is on my side. We over here and we have the ring. The ring, when to the right of the person, is unerring indication of a rich and happy marriage, but lying to the left, disappointment in love. All right, so this is to the left of me, which indicates a quarrel with my partner or some issues with my partner, and I can tell you that that has already happened today. So we've already butted heads this morning. So far, pretty accurate. Then we've got this tower here, which indicates illness, and as you just heard, I've had to pause several times throughout this video, and you just heard me now clear my throat. I have been having trouble with losing my voice for weeks now. No clue what's going on, but it's been very hard to do videos, do readings for clients, because my voice just doesn't hold out. So that health issue that we saw in the 90-day reading, that's probably towards the beginning of the 90 days. It's probably indicating what I'm dealing with right now. And this is an indication to me that once I'm done with this, I need to shut my cake hole and just chill out for a while after I finish this video. But I'm skipping ahead. So normally what I do, there's a hair there and it's driving me crazy. Normally what I do is I look at the individual cards just to sort of give them a glance, like we've got that whole health thing there. But you start with the central card, and then in Lenormand, we generally don't interpret cards on their own. We interpret them at least in pairs, if not triplets. I do this in pairs. So I look at this and this. We've got that bouquet of flowers, an indication of a long and happy life. There's no children nearby. And so, to me, this means that, us butting heads this morning, it's going to be fine. By the end of the day, we're going to be right as rain. It was just, everybody was up late this morning, and we were rushing, and things didn't get done that were supposed to get done before everybody went off to do their thing for the day. And so that's going to ease and abate as the day goes on. We've got the flowers next to luck. And so basically we've kind of got double luck here. It's going to be okay. Long and happy life. The day is going to go on and things will get better. We've got luck then in conjunction with the tower. So this issue that I'm having with my throat, it's going to hold out enough that I can get what I need to get done today done. But because this is here, if I take some precaution, it'll really go. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is basically how I'm taking this. If I take some precautions and take care of myself, then I'm going to be just fine. And, the tower here next to me is just confirming that I am the one who is going to have the health issues today. It is me. It's not one of my kids. It's not my partner. It's me who will have the issues. It was definitely me who started the butting of the heads this morning because I was rushing everybody and trying to get everything done before we all left the house. And so, yeah, it was me that sort of caused us to butt heads. That is very accurate and true. But again, here we have that banquet of flowers with a long, happy life. With the illness, again, this is temporary. This will pass. And honestly, by the end of the day, it should be better. So I start here with the central card, and then I start interpreting the cards in pairs, and then I get the first and last card, the second and fourth card, and interpret those as well. Now, I've also seen some people do this particular spread with Lenormand, that this is the beginning of the day, this is midday, this is the rest of the day. You can do it that way as well. I just don't do that. I like this, where I start with the central issue and then interpret in pairs. You don't have to interpret quite the way you would a Lenormand spread, because while this is based off of Lenormand, it is not a Lenormand deck, and so you don't have to necessarily do the, noun or verb and modifier. Like, you don't have to do noun, adjective, like a lot of people do with the Lenormand system. There's a little more play here because it is not actually a Lenormand deck. So that is how I would do it. My day actually looks pretty good considering the rough start we got off to this morning. So that is how I do the 5 card. And, if you're just diving in to this deck and you're not quite feeling the challenge of taking on that short reading, this could be a really good starting point for those of you who get overwhelmed by a lot of cards. I personally tend to use a lot of cards for some of my readings, and so that short reading to me is just about the right amount of cards. If there's interest, I may try to figure out a way that I can shoot video of the long reading for this deck. I'm just not quite sure how I could set up the camera so that I could actually get it all in the frame. But if you're interested, if there's enough request for it, interest in it, I will try to figure out a way to set up the camera so that I can show you that spread as well. But that is massive. Even I, who like a lot of cards in a reading, that is not one that I really do anymore. I would do that one years ago, but I really don't. Like, that's just too much for me. And I do Lenormand Grand Tableaus, and the long reading for the Gypsy Witch fortune telling playing cards is too much for me. But if you guys really want it, let me know. Again, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you would like to book a reading with me in general, you can do that on my Etsy shop or through my website. Both will be linked in the description box below. I do have a bunch of readings up right now for spooky season. I am offering the short reading for the Gypsy Witch fortune telling cards. So if you'd like to have a reading from me with this deck, you can book that both through my Etsy shop, or you can message me through my website. Let me know that that's what you're looking for, and we can definitely set that up. I hope you all are having a wonderful spooky season, or whenever you're watching this, because I will leave the video up past spooky season. If you haven't already, please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already, because it helps me out so much more than you know. And again, as always, if you have questions or comments, leave them down below, because I love to hear from all of you. But until I see you again, my lovelies, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.